Hi, I'm Vespers, an Ableton Live certified trainer, music producer, and live performer. And today we're going to do a tutorial on how to write hip-hop beats in Ableton Live. And this is the beat that we're going to be creating. Just going to show you guys a preview. So this idea actually came from one of my YouTube subscribers. I have a young guy who writes hip-hop on my channel, and he had PM'd me the other day and asked if I could write a beat for him. And I usually don't do this, but I was kind of inspired by the material he was writing, and he's a young guy using Ableton Live, just getting started, and so I checked him out. His name's Decline, and this is his channel. And so I browsed around a couple of the tracks that he had posted, and I found one that I felt I could work with. So this is the actual source material.
Can you hear me? Y'all know what it's hitting for. Tell them if they didn't know. Figure for the figure mode.
Making our bed. I spit so much heat that my lips are chapped.
So you can hear the percussion in the track is definitely needs some work. So I sampled a little bit of his track that he has here into Ableton Live, and I looped it, so I've just got a little bit of his vocal.
Y'all know what it's hitting for.
Then I wrote an entirely new beat for it using Ableton Live's drum racks. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you the completed beat. I'm going to walk through every single element, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, from sound design all the way through effects and mixing. So let's get started. First of all, I have a Midi pattern here. So what I did is I started off by writing a 16 bar MIDI loop. And I have just different patterns programmed in here. And these are all mapped out to a drum rack in Ableton Live. I write all my beats pretty much every time in drum racks. It's an amazingly powerful, super deep instrument, and it's awesome for percussion. So I have a whole bunch of different sounds here that are loaded into drum pads with effects chains on them and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is go through each sound individually, starting with the most basic ones in the pattern. So very first, I have my kick drum. And my kick drum here is actually a drum rack within a drum rack. I layered up a couple of samples first, and then I selected those samples, and I actually grouped them into a new drum rack. You can do that by pressing Command G with any samples you already have in your chain here. So for example, if I wanted it to do group with these guys, I would just select these by holding down the Shift key and clicking on each one of them, and then I'd press Command or Control if you're on PC and G, and it would group them into a new drum rack here. In this case, I'm going to undo that because that's not what I want in these tracks. So let's go through the kick. So the kick, you can see, is a drum rack embedded into one of the pads of the existing drum rack. So you can have drum racks within drum racks, which is great. The reason why I did this is because I want to apply separate processing to my kicks. So my kicks here, if we just solo them, you'll be able to hear them as a group. So I have a couple of different layers. Now layering percussion is super important in dance music because you get much fatter beats when you have sounds that are layered on top of each other. So here's what each of the sounds are like individually. So we have here a kick drum, which is in a sampler, and I've EQ'd it. This is my subby kick, my bottom layer. So I'm rolling off a bit of low end. I do this in every single element on every single one of my tracks in Live, as I roll off from about 30 or 35 hertz downwards. And the reason why is because those extremely low frequency ranges will rob you of a lot of headroom in your mix, and you can't even hear them anyways. Even on big systems, the 30 hertz range is too low for the human ear to hear. And so makes a lot of sense to roll these off, especially prior to applying any kind of compression or limiting, because once you compress or limit a percussion element, it's going to amplify any really low frequencies that are in there and just muddy up your mix. So that's what I've done with this. I've rolled out some top end, rolled out some bottom end. My next sample up is a lighter kick sample. And what this is doing, again, it's running through a sampler. The reason why I do samplers, just so you know, is I use it to really quickly scroll through different types of percussion. So I actually have 112 percussion samples loaded in here, all these guys. And the way I select my percussion is I map out each one to a different zone, and I use my chain selector MIDI mapped to a knob to scroll really quickly through my samples. That way if I ever want to change a sample or I want to preview some samples really quickly, I don't have to continually load new samples by dragging and dropping them from the browser. I can literally just turn a knob on one of my MIDI controllers and scroll through the samples very quickly. I find it's a great way to create beats. So that's why I'm using samplers here and not the basic simpler instrument that is included in the drum rack. So because this is a higher kick layer, I'm rolling out the low end. So you can see here from 85 Hertz below, I'm rolling that out. And then I'm using a compressor on this one. And the reason why I'm using a compressor is because I'm kind of hyper compressing the front of the hit, because I really just want the front end punch of this one. So it gives it a good slap to the front of the note. Then we have our other kick. And again, this one is a higher kick element. Similarly to the other one, I'm rolling out a lot of the bottom end, and that's pretty much all I'm doing with this sample. Now, this light kick as well is what I use for some of the grace notes in the MIDI pattern. So if we go up to our MIDI pattern here and we scroll in, you'll be able to see I actually have the light kick is playing in time with the other kicks. However, in some places it's playing on its own. For example, right here, it's just giving a little grace note accent before the main snares hit. So if we start from the beginning of the track, you'll be able to hear it. There we go. Okay, so that's the kicks. And the kicks as a group together in the drum rack, I'm applying a limiter to. So I'm using isotope ozone, which is applied to the drum rack containing all of the kicks. So it's processing all of them. And within ozone, what I'm doing here is I'm using the paragraphic equalizer, and again I'm rolling out the low end just to be on the safe side. I always do that before limiting, and I'm giving it a little bit of a boost here. And then I'm also using the loudness maximizer, and the loudness maximizer in ozone I'm using, this is basically a limiter, and I've increased the speed of it so it's setting as fast and loud, and I'm getting some gain reduction here. So if we play, you'll be able to see how much gain reduction I'm getting in the limiter. So every time the kick hits, I'm getting about 3.5 decibels of gain reduction, which is limiting the kick. That makes the percussion definitely sound more punchy and loud.